Hello, history nerds and historians. My name is Christina, and this is Effed Mythology. This is where we talk about a little tidbit from mythology that's super fucked up. Today, in honor of Valentine's Day, we will be telling the Roman myth of Cupid and Psyche. Now, this is the Roman myth and the Roman version because Cupid is associated with Valentine's Day, but pretty much if like you just take these names and minus Cupid, insert Eros, it's like the same story. Minus Venus, insert Aphrodite. Yeah, you know. But I do want to give like a trigger warning before we start that there is talk of like suicide and mental/emotional abuse. So if that's not your thing, or if you aren't in like a proper mental headspace to hear a story about that, I respect and appreciate you. Like there are going to be more episodes coming, and just just skip this one because I don't want like a fun mythology to impact your mental health in any way. I know, especially like this time of year, seasonal depression is a really big thing with people. So if this isn't a story that makes you feel comfortable, I totally respect that. I totally understand that. And I'll see you next time. But without further ado and chatter from me, sit back, relax, and practice your, oh good God, what the fuck faces. This mythological story seems to be the origin of a lot of fairy tales, so we are going to start it in true fairy tale format in Once Upon a Time. In an unnamed city, in an unnamed town, there lived an unnamed king and queen with two unnamed daughters because they are obviously super fucking important to the story, she says sarcastically. Now, the queen gave birth to their third daughter, and they named her Psyche. And because she is named, and in the title of this episode, we can assume that she is actually super fucking important to this story, she says, with no sarcasm. From the beginning, Psyche was the most beautiful person to ever be seen. She was so beautiful that people began saying that she was the embodiment of Venus, the goddess of love on earth. And if she was not the anthropomorphic embodiment of this goddess born from the depths of the blue ocean, then she was the new Venus, born of the earth. And unlike that slutty goddess, she was a virgin, because for some reason, women's virginity is super fucking important topic of discussion in this God's damned myth. So she would walk down the street, Psyche would, and they would all be like, Psyche, you're perfect, you're beautiful, you look like Linda Evangelista, you're a model. And she'd be like, okay, thanks. Can I please buy my bread now? Thank you. No, I don't need my receipt. Great, thanks. Like, she didn't ask to be treated this way. She didn't come out of the womb like, I've arrived, the embodiment of Venus. She didn't walk down the street like, fall down at my feet and worship me, you peasants. It was like put upon her by these people in this unnamed region. They stopped worshiping Venus altogether, began worshiping what they called this goddess on earth, Psyche, and eventually Venus began noticing, and she was not happy. She was appalled, actually, to have to like share her worship with a mortal human wench and terrestrial trash. And she was like, I'll make sure she pays for her insolence that other people are doing to her. But like, it's kind of a theme in mythology to just victim blame and not look at the actual like source of the problem. So she called her son Cupid and told him to avenge his mother and let that virgin fall in love with a monster. Whether it was like a literal monster or just like a loathsome criminal, Venus did not care. She just wanted Psyche to marry someone that would ostracize her from society by like the mere thought that she could marry such an abomination. And then Venus open mouth kissed her son, because apparently they're one of those kinds of families, which, I mean, should not be surprising to me, considering like all of the incest that is mythology. I mean, everyone is like sibling or parent or child, or, I mean, if they're mortal, they're sexually assaulted. But, you know, the gods were great. Meanwhile, Psyche is now an adult and is getting like super depressed, because even though she's like really hot and people literally like fall down to worship at her feet, nobody wanted to marry her. And she was like, I am just gonna die a virgin. Because again, super important to the story for some reason. But like all the people in town were too intimidated by her. They felt that her beauty belonged like depicted in a statue or a painting, not like laying next to them in their beds, like cooking them dinner at nighttime. But both of her significantly less attractive unnamed sisters were both married off, and in some sources I read said that they were even married off to kings, but these kings were like ugly and old, and the sisters were not very happy about it. So Psyche's father, unnamed king of this unnamed town, went to the oracle, which, I mean, if you take anything away from effed up mythology, like, don't go to the oracle. Don't trust them. Like, don't try to figure out what they mean. Don't try to like solve their riddles, because they speak in circles and it never turns out well for anyone. So just don't go to the fucking oracle. So Daddy No Name goes to the oracle, and she tells him that Psyche will marry today. And Daddy Unmentionable is like, why didn't I wait so long? This is a quick fucking process. But the oracle continues, go home and dress Psyche for her wedding today, but also dress her for her funeral, because you will never see her again. You see, your daughter is going to be taken by a winged, inhuman creature, and she will become his loving wife. And it will be as if she died. So Daddy Anonymous goes home and recounts what the oracle told him, and they begin making their preparations. And apparently, like, the whole city hears of it and is lamenting. And did you ever notice that the wedding march and funeral march are like really kind of similar? Psyche did on this day, as the entire town escorted the quote weeping living corpse of Psyche to her wedding/funeral. The people of the town are like absolutely beside themselves. They're tearing at their clothing. They're clawing at their eyes. They're beating their chests in grief. But Psyche, in the first time that we hear her speak, addresses the whole town. And I just like fucking instantly fell in love with her. And she tells the people to be quiet and stop this show that they're putting on. Like, why are you grieving for me now? She says, you should have cried when you were addressing me as the incarnation of Venus, or like the new and improved Venus 2.0. You should have cried for me when people were coming from miles away to worship at my feet, even though I didn't want them to, because when you were all doing that, you were dooming me to this fate. Did you really think that Venus like wouldn't notice that this was happening and seek retaliation against me? Like, just finished leading me up to the crags. Let me meet the husband I deserve. Like, why should I put off trying to meet him if he's a terrible monster? I mean, I'm still gonna love him, apparently. So she like just walks away and marched on. People quietly are following behind her, and they put her on the tallest tip of the mountain, and then they just left her there. And once everyone finally left, the like adrenaline and bravery that she was happening kind of goes away, and she finally let terror and sadness overwhelm her. And as she's crying, she doesn't really notice that the west wind Favonius whisks her away and carries her off to a flowery meadow and just like plops her down. And she immediately falls asleep, because finding out you're going to get married to a monster and practically being left for dead on a mountainside before getting whisked away by the wind sounds fucking exhausted. I'm exhausted going to Target. I could not imagine. When she woke up, she took in the grove that she was in. It was filled with beautiful trees and a large fountain, and just past this was a giant glistening mansion that seemed fit for a god, complete with gold columns and silver murals and precious stones in the floor, etc., etc. And she's like, Jeff Bezos, is that you? Inside, everything that she could ever imagine was in there. And she just like stared in astonishment. And as she's staring, these disembodied voices told her, like Lumiere style, like, be a guest, be a guest, you'll never see our face, and this is all for you. Upstairs you will find a room exactly to her expectations, and relax and have a bath. And they would like tend to her every need, but she would never see them because they're like poltergeists or something, I don't know. But later that night, in the dead of darkness, she feels a presence enter her room. This presence is a man. He introduces himself as her husband, and they spoke for a while. And she's like, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't remember saying I do, but like, I'll just believe you. Like, you say you're my husband. Cool. Thanks, dude. Like, marriage is easy. He mentioned that he already loved her dearly, and he hoped that she loved her new home because she could never leave. And if they were to have a happy marriage, she was just to like trust him with all of her heart and never attempt to gaze upon him. And then Psyche, new and improved Virgin Venus 2.0, saw absolutely nothing wrong with this statement and was a virgin no more. So fucking useless until she gets pregnant, right? According to mythology. So before dawn, her husband snuck out, and they repeated this pattern every night. Back home, news reached the unnamed sisters that Psyche was sacrificed to a terrible monster. Rumors began saying that he was this winged, horrible, grotesque serpent, and they rushed back to this unnamed town to confront Mommy and Daddy incognito, and they planned to make their way to the mountain the next day where Psyche was left for her funeral wedding thing. That night, when Psyche's unseen husband comes to her, he tells her that Psyche is in danger because she threatens you, so you need to be on guard. And she's like, who threatens me? And he's like, she. And she's like, could you like give me a name or a description? And he's like, no, it's just she. Because everyone is just like so fucking cryptic in this story. And he tells her that her sisters have heard of her fate and are making their way to the mountain. And even if she hears their crying and grief, not to respond or even look towards the sound of the noise, or else he and Psyche will be met with terrible sorrow and an irrevocable end. And she agrees with, quote, wifely obedience, because clearly this story was originally told by a man. But she spent the entire next day in anguish and grief for herself, since she was as good as dead, confined forever to the loneliness of her pristine prison, and couldn't even comfort or be comforted by her sisters that she loved so much. And she literally just cried herself to sleep. And her just awesome, wonderful, like, husband of the year came to her that night for a little action, as he does every night, because that's literally all their relationship consists of. Was like, Psyche, is this literally all you're going to do all day? Just lay around and cry and feel sorry for yourself? Bitch, you live in a fucking palace. Who gives a flying fuck if you're lonely? Have you seen the jewels in the fucking floor? But no, you just lay in our marital bed and cry all day, even when I'm trying to fuck you. I can't fuck a weeping girl. It takes all the fun out of it. Who do you think I am, Jupiter? You know what? Fine. Go ahead. Go see your sisters. Just remember what I fucking told you when this all goes up in flames. He's just so romantic. And Psyche, not at all exhibiting signs of being emotionally abused, and most likely afflicted with like a concerning mental illness that she should seek help for immediately, pleaded with him and threatened to kill herself because she was just so unhappy, until her unknown husband finally conceded and told her she could see her sisters. But I warn you, hidden husband told her menacingly, do not let them ask about my appearance, or you will be flung into a bottomless pit of despair and never again be blessed with my presence. To this, she perked right up and thanked her husband for his immense kindness, and said that she would rather die 100 deaths than be without him, and that I love you wholeheartedly, whoever you are. And even though I've threatened suicide twice in the last 36 seconds, Cupid cannot do better in finding me such a wonderful husband. And to thank him, she started, making her moves on him in a marital way. And he resisted at first because he was still so angry at her for being lonely and depressed and emotionally abused. And eventually he could not resist her, though. And he gave in to her Venus-like charms. So the next day, the sisters make their way to the mountain again, I guess, and begin mourning her again, I guess. And suddenly they're whisked away by the west wind Favonius and plopped into a meadow full of trees and a fountain, and right beyond that is glistening Jeff Bezos' mansion and Psyche. The three embrace each other with happy tears and kisses, and Psyche gives them a tour and showers them with gifts, and the happy joy at seeing their sister alive is soon replaced by the green-eyed monster of jealousy. One of Psyche's sisters, blah blah, asked her who her husband was and if they were to meet this wonderful master of the house who drenches his newlywed wife with gold and jewels. And are those rubies in the floor? It's so pretty and you're just so great. Like, who's your husband? And Psyche laughs it off and says that he's a handsome young man who's currently out hunting. And oh my God, would you look at the time? You need to get back home. Okay, love you, bye. And Favonius whisks them away and plops them back on the cliffs where they started. And her sisters were pissed. Blah blah was like, oh, it fucking figures that the most beautiful person in the world would get a gun for a fucking husband and get showered in riches for the rest of her life when we're married off to these ugly old guys and live like maids and slaves in her own home. And this bitch thinks that she's a fucking goddess in her mansion of gold and she's gonna look down on us. And the other sister, etc., was like, did you see how arrogant she was and how she just couldn't wait to rub it in our faces how well off she is, and just threw some of her unwanted treasures at us before banishing us, so now we can go and tell the town how happy she is? Oh no, we aren't going to tell anyone what we saw, and we're not going to give her the fucking satisfaction of having everyone continue to think that she's better than us. So they went home and they started devising this wicked plot of how they were going to take down their sister and rob her of her happiness and joy for the rest of her life. So, typical sibling rivalry. I apologize for the dump truck outside my apartment right now. So that night, Psyche was so happy when her husband came. She told him all about her visit, and her husband was like, great. Did you have an awesome time and drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and just soak up each other's awesomeness? Do you fucking know how much danger you're in still? She, this still unnamed feminine foe, is going to come for you if you don't get your shit together. And those lying whores that are your sisters are plotting a way to get you to betray me. And if those dumb bitches ever come back, which they will, of course, don't talk to them. If you absolutely have to because you're a weak woman, don't answer any questions about me if you still want to have me around to help raise our child because, oh yeah, by the way, totally off topic, thought you ought to know, you're pregnant. And Psyche is like, a baby? And just ignores everything else that he said because, toxic relationships are all the rage in Greek mythology and Roman mythology. And he's like, yeah, so now it's up to you what the outcome of our child's life will be. If you keep your mouth shut, it'll be a god. And if you cinch on me, it'll be mortal and one day fucking die. Because that's what you want to think about with your kid. When I was chest deep in my pregnancy, hormone driven anxiety, and later on with just postpartum depression in general, that would totally be what I wanted to hear because it's definitely not something that I thought about and still have nightmares about even today. No, it's just yeah, think about your kid's mortality. That's great. Just wonderful. Everyone dies. Why be sad about that when you're just finding out that you're pregnant? But Psyche didn't care. She's like, I'm gonna be a mommy. I'm so happy. And then, okay, so this is a direct quote from Sarah Ruden's translation of The Golden Ass, which is the main source of this story, because I literally could not say this better myself. So Psyche's sisters, quote, those bitches, those hideous demons breathing serpentine poison went rushing out with unholy speed for another voyage. Just chef's kiss. Then Sarah refers to Psyche's husband as a drop-in husband, which is just another chef's kiss. But drop-in husband warns Psyche about her sister's arrival. He reminds her to take caution and to ignore them and don't let those bitches who don't even deserve to be called your sisters because they're terrible convince you to do anything. And Psyche is like, why do you keep treating me like a dumbass? You already told me multiple times what you think of them. I'm like, I can't see you. Let me see my sisters. I will not let you down, and I will not be a dumbass. I will prove you wrong. And then Psyche acts like a dumbass. So her sisters like march up the mountain, don't even wait for the wind to come to them. They just like swan dive off the cliff. Favonius catches them, carries them off to Psyche, and they see that she's pregnant. And her sister, uncredited, is like, oh, good for you. This is going to be such a blessing. We're so happy for you. And he's just gonna be a real little Cupid if he's anything like his parents. I mean, he's just gonna be gorgeous, right? I mean, your husband is gorgeous, right? I mean, he has to be to deserve such a beauty like you, right? And Psyche like just apparently has terrible pregnancy brain, and I was like, oh yeah, he's so handsome. He's an older merchant with like salt and pepper hair, but he's still wonderful. I really wish that you could meet him. Too bad he's away on a business trip right now. And her other sister, unspecified, is like a middle-aged merchant. I thought you said that he was a young, beautiful hunter. What's going on, Psyche? And then Psyche like just clearly forgets everything her husband told her and just spills the entire story to her sisters, and they were like, yeah, we thought as much. There have been terrible stories coming from the town that a terrible monster, like a winged serpent with venom dripping from its fangs, lives in this castle, and you, sweet baby angel, are in grave danger. He's not going to keep you around for much longer. He's almost done fattening you up, and before you give birth, he will surely just devour you and your unborn baby whole. And we care about you so much, obviously. And we only want what's best for you, obviously. So, dear sister, you need to murder your husband. And Psyche is like, oh my God, so you're right. You have to be. I mean, I've never seen his face, so the only logical answer is he is this terrible monster that you speak of. But however am I going to defeat this monster? I am but a lowly woman. And her sisters are like, sweet baby angel, we are here for you. Okay, so you're going to take this dagger and hide it on your side of the bed and then get a lamp and fill it with oil. He's going to come to you like he always does, and like afterwards when he falls into a deep slumber, light the lamp and just like plunge this dagger into his neck, and then we'll be waiting for you. And after he's dead, we'll come and we'll gather your beautiful belongings. Like, do those rubies come out of the floor? So, you know, do you have any reusable grocery bags that I can put them in, because like I'm trying to be more eco-friendly, and like you can come too, and then we'll just like we'll take you back home with us and marry you off to a human. And she's like, this is an incredible plan. Like, did you guys just come up with this on the spot? Like, this is a really, really good plan. Like, yeah, okay, like I'll kill my husband. That's great. Like, you guys are so smart, and just like on the fly with like no nefarious intentions. Like, wow, like, you guys are way smart. Yeah, okay. All right. So I'm going to kill my husband, and like, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah. And then they left. And Psyche, she kind of like wrestles with herself all day. I imagine her overdramatic, like Janet from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, if only we were among friends or sane persons. And before she knew it, it was night, and her husband is coming to her bed. They fuck, unbeknownst to him, for the last time, and she begins carrying out the rest of her sister's plan. So he falls asleep, she grabs the dagger, lights the lamp, and illuminated the beast that lay beside her, and saw a man. A beautiful man with glorious wings and the face of a god. It was fucking Cupid. She was fucking Cupid. And now this is where Christina interjects to inform that Cupid is not like a teeny tiny little cherub that's depicted in paintings for some reason. Like, he's a full grown man. I mean, he's a god, but he's like a full size dude. Psyche wasn't fucking a cherub baby and not realizing it this whole time. Okay. Back to the story. Psyche could not believe her eyes. She dropped the knife, and the sound startled her, and she jumped. And simultaneously, two things happened. As she startled herself, she pricked herself on one of Cupid's golden arrows and fell even more deeply in love with the god of love. But as she startled as well, she jumped, and a drop of hot oil flew out of the lamp laughing maniacally, and landed on Cupid's shoulder. He jumps out of bed, betrayed and angry, and tried to fly away. Psyche grabs him by the leg, but couldn't hold on for long, and she fell. And instead of seeing if his pregnant wife, who was far enough along that her sisters knew she was with child without her saying anything, without checking to see if she's okay after falling a considerable distance to the ground, he perches in a tree and recounts the whole story of how he became her husband. So, how was it that Cupid, who was set up by his mother to punish Psyche for her daring to reluctantly have other people call her Venus, end up as her husband? Well, Cupid went out with all intentions to do exactly as his mother asked, but when he saw Psyche for the first time, he was just enamored by her. And as he was staring at her, he lost grip of one of his arrows and pricked himself and immediately fell madly in love and could not hit her with one of his arrows to make her love someone else, so he made her his bride. Loophole. But his mother, the sometimes jealous and vengeful Venus, could never know of his indiscretion, and therefore he hid his face and true identity from Psyche and hid his love from the rest of the world. But now she has betrayed him by listening to those wicked sisters whose jealousy and hatred of Psyche's happiness was the sole influence of their evilness, and they, he could see, would surely be punished, but Psyche would be punished too. She would never see Cupid again. And with that, he flew off, and Psyche, emotionally distraught and losing the love of her life and extra crazy from the extra love juice in her system from that arrow, just throws herself into the river in an attempt to end her life. But the river refuses to accept her and plops her back down on the shore, Moana style, right in front of the god Pan. Pan tells her that he can tell that she has an oversupply of love because how she was acting, and that she should just pray to the god Cupid because although he acts like a spoiled and entitled child, he's the best god there is. Devote yourself to him, Pan tells her, and he will fix all of your problems. And Psyche, I like to think, just like laughs at the irony and just like screams an Alanis Morissette, which is probably a reference to like three of you because I'm old, and begins making her way to her elder sister's house. Psyche went to her eldest sister, she must not be named, and told her that she did exactly as she was told. But when it was revealed that it was Cupid, Psyche found that she couldn't kill him. He awoke and told Psyche that he obviously picked the wrong sister and that Psyche should consider herself divorced and that he was going to marry the more worthy sister with all the necessary marriage ceremonies, and gave the eldest sister's name, which we've never gotten, but apparently she has. And the sister immediately made up a lie to her husband. She's like, BRB, my parents died. And then went to the mountaintop, screamed for the west wind Favonius to take her to her proper husband, and leaped off the mountainside. But Favonius was like, nah, bitch. And pieces of her scattered everywhere, which like makes me laugh every time. And I think that it's just like, it's just been really revealing to me just how dark and fucked up my sense of humor is. But like reading the words, pieces of her scattered everywhere, like it makes me laugh every time. Like it's bad. It's bad, guys. It's bad. And if you're listening to this and you're also smirking, you're just as bad as I am and you're my people. But Psyche was not done and did the same thing to her other sister who met the same fate, and pieces of her too scattered everywhere. But Psyche didn't even like take a break to think about what she did and how her parents must feel, and just began traveling the world looking for a husband that she would never find because he was whining in his mother's room over his burn between life and death, apparently, because even though he's an immortal fucking god, apparently a little hot oil is enough to kill him. So, I mean, keep that in mind if you ever find yourself at odds with the Greek god. Like, Titans can't kill them. Giant eagles eat their liver every day and can't kill them, but step into a McDonald's kitchen and it's a fucking deity battlefield. Now, rumors start spreading and people start talking shit, as they are wont to do, that while Venus is dancing around in the sea, Cupid is living it up with his terrestrial trash in the mountains. News gets back to Venus and she's furious. She's like, my baby? What's the name of this pedophile who wants to sleep with my baby? But like, girl, don't be that kind of mom. He is a grown-ass god monster bird thing. Okay. So Venus just starts naming off different nymphs and being all accusatory. And people are like, we don't know, man, but like we heard Psyche or something like that is her name. Like, I don't know. Just like, leave us the fuck alone. And Venus fucking loses it. She's like, what am I? A fucking madam? Pointing him in the direction of his next sexual conquest? You know what? I'm going to fucking disown him and adopt a slave in his place and bless them with all of his gifts, because at least I know that they will fucking listen and obey me. And since I can't rely on him to carry out my wishes, I'll fucking destroy that bitch myself. And she storms off, and as she storms off, she runs into Ceres and Juno, which are Demeter and Hera for like Greek mythology people. And in her fury, she asks them to help her punish this slave of hers named Psyche. And they were like, girl, why are you trying to ruin your son's life and like his love? He's a man. Like, I know he's your son and he'll always be your baby, but he's a full-grown man monster bird thing. And you just like aren't gonna let him love anyone. Like, he's a god of love, but he can't love anyone. Like, you have loved many people, Venus, like many people. And I'm like, finally, someone who fucking makes sense, even though like Venus doesn't listen at all. But Christina is very excited to like see someone who makes sense and like thinks with their brain. So Psyche is still running around the world looking for her husband, and she winds up in the temple of Ceres. And level-headed Ceres, having just left Venus and trying to defend her, tells Psyche everything that happens. And Psyche realizes that this quote she that Cupid was warning her about is obviously Venus. And Psyche begs Ceres for sanctuary, and Ceres is like, oh, this is awkward. Like, I feel for you, I really do. But like, she's not that bad of a person. She's like a little overprotective of her son, and like I can't really afford to make enemies right now. So like yeah, my heart goes out to you. But no. So awkward. Sorry. So Psyche leaves and finds herself in a temple of Juno. Like, what are the fucking odds? Like, the two goddesses that talk to Venus are the two goddesses that she just like so happens to come upon. And she begs Juno to help her because Juno is especially helpful to pregnant women. And Juno is like, yeah, I can't. You know, Venus's family, she's like my stepdaughter in some renditions of this story, but like also my daughter-in-law because of like ancestral reasons of the gods that I don't have to explain to you. And like, I'd love to help, but like, I can't. Sorry. Meanwhile, Venus is hunting Psyche down and fucking like handing out flyers looking for her like a lost dog. Like, reward 7 kisses and 1 Frencher from me, Venus. They don't call me the goddess of love for nothing. And then Psyche just walks in her house like nothing is going on. Like, oh, hey, mom-in-law, what's up? And Venus, like so many mother-in-laws, does not greet her kindly and subjects her to anxiety and depression, except in this case, these are like literally anxiety and depression, like the physical embodiments of anxiety and depression that literally torture Psyche. And to torture her more, Venus starts threatening Psyche and Cupid's child, telling her, you really think that that baby is going to have a good life? You dumb, cheap human. You can't marry a god. You can't give birth to a god. And besides, your marriage isn't even actually a marriage. There were no witnesses and no familial consent. So you're going to give birth to a bastard child if I even allow your pregnancy to progress that far. Then she beats the shit out of Psyche and then mixes together like all the wheat, barley, seeds, lentils, and beans that she has and dumps them on the floor and tells Psyche to prove that she would at least make a good slave and sort through and separate everything by nightfall, Cinderella style. And then Venus leaves to go to a wedding. And Psyche just stood there dumbfounded until the tiniest creature, an ant, comes to her aid. The ant calls all of his little ant friends to help out this adorable, unhappy girl, and they sorted everything for her. When Venus came back that night, she chastised Psyche and said that it was actually Cupid who had done it for her, but not to worry, more was to come. And then Venus like tossed her a piece of bread like a dog and went to her room. But mind you, like Cupid's been locked in his room under guard since she found out, so like there's literally like no way that can be the case that he helped her. Like, also is mortally wounded by a drop of hot oil, so like he can't possibly like sort shit for her, obviously. The next morning, Venus summoned Psyche and told her next task. Go down to this special river and gather the wool from the sheep that graze there. But the sheep that graze are special sheep that have fleece made of gold. Not the same golden fleece as Jason and Medea, though, but it makes me wonder, like, if they were just flocks of sheep with golden fleece wandering around, why did Jason have to go on that quest and fuck over Medea in 17 different ways? Like, I know you're not supposed to like Medea, but I think she's my favorite myth, which, again, speaks to my fucked up personal preferences. And if you have no idea what I am talking about, I plan on doing her story very soon. So Psyche happily goes out on her quest, but she plans on just throwing herself in the river and committing suicide because she's in pristine mental health. But the reeds at the river ask her to please carry on and try to carry out the task set before her, but not to just go and like grab the fleece, because these sheep are fiercely protective and will ram her with their hard horns and bite her with their poisonous teeth. So just chill here with us, relax on the bank, don't kill yourself. And then later on today, the sheep will move back to their home and will brush against the branches, and then you can just like pick it off the trees like fucking berries. So that's exactly what she does. And then Venus was like, what the damn fuck? Cupid obviously did this for you too, because you're too dumb to be able to figure this out. So now I want you to go trek up this fucking mountain to the river Styx, you know, the river of the fucking underworld, and get some of that icy, icy, delicious water and like, tut, hurry back. So the mountainside is like fucking crazy though. It's unclimbable because, I mean, for one, you're not supposed to be able to get to the river Styx if you're not dead. And like, even if she did try, the tumultuous river starts screaming at her to like, go away, back the fuck up. And like, she's just frozen until the eagle of Jupiter, in Greek mythology, Zeus, came sweeping down and was like, you dumb bitch, what are you doing? Like, surely you know you can't trust this river. Seriously, like, you mortals swear by the gods, because like that's what you fear more than anything. The gods swear by the river Styx because they fear it so much. And you think you can just steal some of the water from its summit? Psyche, are you okay? Are you okay, girl? Like, do you need help? Oh, dear gods. Okay, girl, just give me the fucking jar. And then this eagle, like, flies up to the summit, takes some of the water, even though the water screams in protest. And Psyche brought it back to Venus, who praised her and greeted her with loving, open arms. Just kidding. Did you forget what story we were telling? Venus is like, well, aren't you the most wonderful fucking witch? Well, here's a task that will be fit for a sorceress such as yourself. Take this box, go down to the underworld, and go to the queen of the fucking underworld herself, Prosperina, and tell her that I ask for just a little bit of her loveliness in this box because I have been wasting away caring for my suffering and dying son who is in such a state because of his stupid whore wife. And your little bit of beauty will be all I need to regain myself completely. And make sure you tell her exactly that. Now, go. So Psyche walks away like, how the fuck do I get to the underworld? It isn't some place you can just like walk into. Like, hey guys, here for my weekly lunch date with Grandpa. How you doing, Judy? Your son says hi. Oh my God, is that Achilles and Patroclus? People upstairs will not believe me when I tell them what you guys are doing down here. Of course they will. Like, everybody knows about Achilles and Patroclus. Like, happy to see you guys down here together. Like, oh, I'm so happy for you guys. Love you. No. Like, except on a couple very rare occasions, typically like with heroes and those loved by the gods, people do not go to the underworld and come back and tell stories about it. So Psyche thought the best way to do that was just like to throw herself off the highest fucking tower. And like, even if she didn't accomplish her task and figure out a way to come back from the underworld, at least she'd be done because she's in pristine fucking mental health and doesn't need to seek professional help immediately. Before Psyche launches herself off the roof, the tower starts speaking to her and asks her to reconsider her plan because although she will definitely get to the underworld that way, she will never be able to return because all the creatures and inanimate objects are like obviously fucking rooting for her and are on the side of love. So the tower tells her exactly how to get to the underworld while still, you know, like alive. And he tells her to make her way to a certain tower and gather some cakes and mead and then put 2 coins in your mouth. On your way there, there will be multiple beings that will be asking for your help, but ignore them because they are just lures set out by Venus. Charon, the boatman to the underworld who never does anything for free, will take one of the coins from your mouth, make sure he retrieves it himself from your mouth with his grubby little disgusting hands. And when you get to the underworld, give the 3-headed dog Cerberus some of your cake. And I'm not sure like which head you need to give it to, but Fluffy will be happy regardless. And then tell Prosperina, which in Greek is Persephone, about your task. Kneel down before her. Do not accept any food or drink, and she will help you. And then do like the exact same thing in reverse in order to get home. And whatever you do, do not open the fucking box. So Psyche does everything that she's told to do by this talking tower to get to the underworld and back. But when she's right outside the palace of Venus, Psyche, who, as you know at this point, is renowned for her great decision making, decides that she probably looks like a hot fucking mess with like trekking to the underworld by foot and back and all, and could use a little refresher. And if Venus said that this could redeem beauty, then she needed it more than anyone else to make herself presentable to her wonderful and not at all toxic husband. So she opened the box and immediately fell into a death-like sleep. Cupid, having finally healed from his woe burn, decided he couldn't be away from Psyche any longer because, you know, it's been a few days since he got fucked. And he found Psyche laying in her death-like state and wiped the sleep from her eyes and placed it back into the box and woke her with true love's kiss, and then immediately flew off. Because he was so scared of his mother's wrath, he needed to get the big guns involved and go tattle to Venus's daddy. No wonder he's depicted as a small child in paintings. Like, it all makes sense now. It all makes sense now. It all makes sense. So he goes to Grandpa Jupiter and like throws himself at his feet and pleads his case. And Jupiter's like, you come to me on this, the day of, probably one of my children's weddings, because I have so many who can even keep track. You come to me and you ask me a favor after causing so much shit. Like, it's your fault I fall in love with so many mortal women and cheat on my wife constantly and have completely damaged my reputation, making me no better than a fucking piece of cattle. You, my friend, are what people like me call a scapegoat. You think that I'm gonna help you? Hey, yeah, sure, I'll help you. Like, no problem. But, like, you have to promise me that if I see a super hot mortal woman, you'll help me get her into my bed. Okay? Cool. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's piss off my daughter and my wife. Then he calls all the gods and goddesses into his presence and tells them that he has come up with a solution to tame the wild and irresponsible Cupid. Cupid is going to marry Psyche. Brilliant, right? Yeah, it's going to solve all the problems. It's going to, what? No, they are not already married. No, she is not already pregnant with his child either. No way, this was my idea. I am king of the gods, and I am the smart one here, and this was totally my idea. Fuck off, Mercury. I don't know why. I just feel like Mercury would be the one to give him a hard time. Anyway, they invite Psyche up to the home of the gods, and they have her, eat ambrosia and drink nectar, and she becomes an immortal goddess, and they have this lavish wedding, and Psyche comes into Cupid's protection because, let us not forget, women are property, and all of a sudden Venus is totally fine with the match and no longer has any issues with Psyche, and Psyche gives birth to a totally healthy child, disregarding the multiple falls and beatings that she experienced and multiple suicide attempts during her pregnancy, and they name her Pleasure, and they all live happily ever after. The end. What the actual And that's the story of Cupid and Psyche. Happy Valentine's Day, I guess. Oh my God. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any stories from like history or mythology that you'd like to hear me discuss, please reach out. All of my contact information is in the description box below. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, please consider subscribing. Or like leaving a review or joining my Patreon if you want. And remember, friends, history may be watching you, so don't fuck it up. And don't dare to have other people call you as beautiful as Venus, even though you don't want anything to do with it, because you will marry a monster. And then become an immortal goddess. So like, maybe it's not that bad. Yeah. Okay, bye.